Hello, this is your host, Stephanie Renee, and welcome to the first official episode of the Sick-Witted podcast relaunch. In its new iteration, our discussions will have two segments. The first part of the program will feature interviews with wellness practitioners in the greater Philadelphia area and on the national landscape who have initiatives and events you need to know about. We'll also chat with people in various places of their own wellness journeys and have some candid conversation about how they got to this point and their vision for what lies ahead. This is our safe space for honest exchanges about our state of being, doing, living, and healing. While there may be a few superstars and champions of good, healthy living out here, we also know that many of us struggle to find our rhythm and proper path to achieving wellness. Here is where we can explore those challenges and provide some helpful solutions. With that, it's time to dig in. The new Sick-Witted podcast starts now. Hello, everyone. This is your Vibe, Mr. Stephanie Renee, and welcoming you to our premiere relaunch of the Sick-Witted podcast here on Soul Sanctuary Radio. Some of you may remember that back in 2020, Sick-Witted as a podcast was offered as a way for people to discuss health and wellness issues aside from COVID-19. We were all in the midst of the pandemic and the shutdown, but there were some people who were dealing with some very real health issues outside of that pandemic that should not have gone unnoticed. And so this podcast became a mouthpiece for that kind of conversation. And that is how we are re-engaging with the community today. I want to bring in my co-host and our Sick-Witted partner, holistic health practitioner, Andre Capers. Welcome, sir.
Hi, Stephanie. How you doing today?
I am great, and I'm glad that you are joining me in this effort because as much as I am a vocal advocate for health and wellness, I am not a practitioner. So having your perspective and your voice in this effort is very much welcomed and necessary.
Yes. Definitely see a lot on the day-to-day. Glad to be here, chop it up with you today. We're going to discuss some health and get folks on track. Right?
Yes.
There we go.
Yes, that is absolutely the idea, and building off the on track. We know that one of the ways that we get healthier is through positive movement. Now, for some folks like me, sweating is not something I necessarily enjoy. So I have to be able to do it in a way where I'm not conscious of it. And for me, that's dance. But also just getting up off the couch, out of bed, out into the world, especially as we are getting ready to enter the autumn season. That means that it's not quite as drastically hot and prohibitive, I'll say, for a lot of people to enjoy movement, walking, and building community. You might not be a runner, because runner takes a level of fitness that some people are not necessarily ready to commit to, but just being able to get out and move is one way that we begin this wellness process. And joining us today to talk about an effort that is happening right here in West Philadelphia that will get people moving in that right direction is my soror, Stacey Woodson, who is joining us today. Welcome, Stacey. Welcome to Sick-Witted.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited to have you because, there is a lot of joy. People who live outside of the area always hear about West Philly in connection to Fresh Prince, right? West Philadelphia, born and raised. And that is a way that people embrace some joy around our city. And you are bringing health and wellness right to a very busy corridor in West Philly that people should know about. So tell us a little bit about your efforts overall. Like what has brought you to West Philly with this health and wellness message?
Well, the first is I am a resident of West Philly. So I live just a few blocks from the corridor. So I wanted to bring something home to my neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And it's also a corridor that is we often use the word food desert, but really in my line of work, we like to call it a food apartheid. There are not a lot of nourishing options readily available. And this is by design, which is why we refer to it as food apartheid opposed to a food desert. Mm-hmm. And I was awarded a micro grant. And I said, what do I want to do that's a little bit different? And so being a dietitian and nutritionist, I have a background in nutrition, but I didn't want to just do nutrition education classes. I wanted to build community. I wanted to make sure people are, food is medicine. So make sure people know those things about nutrition that I feel like is not typically taught. So the way that I teach nutrition is very different than you might hear if you go to the doctor's office, right? And so that cultural retention, knowing that foods that your ancestors ate, they are actually nourishing, knowing that there's other things that are going on that determine our health outcomes. And so it's not just our fault, it's a systematic problem. So I wanted to be able to address those. And what's really fun, because we're going into the colder months, we're actually having 2 walks each week. One, I wanted to do specifically to build community, right? To get out and know who your neighbors are. But the second one, the ones that are going to be on Sunday, those are themed walks. And it's based off of a book called 52 Ways to Walk, which is a really amazing book. And so when we think of walking, we just think of traditional, you get up and you go. But there are absolute benefits from walking in the cold, walking in the rain, walking backwards, walking with things on your back. So each one of those walks that we do during the 5-week program is going to have a theme. And so people will understand that there's health benefits beyond just the standard walking, which is great as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so and Dre, I want to let you get in, but I got to go back for a second because you and I both set up a little bit more when we heard the term food apartheid.
Yes, absolutely.
Because I think that as a concept, that as a moment to sort of sit in that reality is particularly important for people, because the same way that we understood there needed to be a social movement to battle actual segregated apartheid, whether it was Jim Crow laws here in the United States or our brothers and sisters in South Africa, that's a concept that we understood. We couldn't just sit back and think that it was going to change. There had to be physical organizing around ending the system. And so for you to refer to this idea of our lack of access to healthy food as apartheid, I think is really important for people. And I hope folks who might watch this video or listen to this really take a moment to deal with the intentionality of you calling it that. And so as a West Philly resident, as someone who is anchoring some of your efforts in that neighborhood, what have you seen happen in West Philly in particular to create a food apartheid way of being?
I mean, it's been this way since I've been here. I'm not originally from Philly, but I have a lot of extended family that lives in the neighborhood that I live in. And it has, when I say improved, slightly improved by, there's new supermarkets coming in. And when I say new, it's not new anymore, but like a Fresh Grocer on 56th Street, that didn't used to be there. Like imagine where the people had to go to shop if that wasn't there. And there's just not readily available markets that have high quality things at reasonable prices to service all the community members in West Philly. Mm-hmm. And so one of two things happens. You're left with lower quality food that, you can just grab, or you have to have the privilege to be able to get outside of your immediate neighborhood to secure your food and bring it back.
Right. And, I find that surprising also because I don't think I had really conceptualized how few supermarkets are in that immediate neighborhood, especially given the amount of gentrification that's also happened in that area, right? We have new gated buildings happening at the other end of 52nd Street, closer to Baltimore Avenue, right? So there's clearly an intentionality about a different income brackets, a different socioeconomic status moving into the neighborhood, but they're going to be dealing with that same lack of access that the current residents are, unless they get in a car and deal with the expense of having a car to be able to drive elsewhere.
Yep, a car or Uber, but with the gentrification, it's more likely that they'll have those means to do so. I mean, I have the means to get in the car and go to whatever market I choose to, and I do. So that, yeah, it's getting a little bit better, but also, you do have the smaller markets that cater to other clientele, like the Co-op on Baltimore Ave. That's something that people frequent. But all that to say is, when you look at the amount of people in West Philadelphia and you look at the amount of grocery stores, it's not proportionate.
Right.
And that's by design. Companies do not want to come in to neighborhoods that look like this. And going back to answer your question, I think that there's a lot of positive things happening in West Philly. And I think that one of the things that is happening that we're seeing is more and more community gardens popping up, and people really embracing growing their own food. And one of my community partners for this program is located directly across the street from Malcolm X Park at it's the Get Fresh Daily is the organization, which is right in front of Global Leadership Southwest, which is a community garden space that welcomes all.
Nice. Very
wonderful.
Nice. So I do have a question. If we could touch a little bit, or if you could speak a little bit more about your take on how it affects us on the day-to-day, having access to a limited amount of outlets that actually have healthier choices of foods. I say, and the reason why I'm asking is because, people, we adapt to our environment, right? And if we only have a Chinese store, or if we only have a Poppy store that's available on the corner, chances are that's where we're going to go to eat, because that's all we have access to, right? And of course, that leads to poor health, right? Because of the choices of ingredients that they're using in these foods that are causing a lot of the issues that people are experiencing. Different forms of cancer, high blood pressure, inflammation in the body. A lot of this stuff is stemming from food choices, right? So, Stacey, I just wanted to kind of get your take on and your thoughts on some things that we could do in the meantime, if until these supermarkets, hopefully, if they come to these neighborhoods, or if we do have more access to healthier choices of foods, what are some of the things that we could do in the meantime that could actually help out?
Okay. I'm just like, I'm about to go, like my mind is buzzing right now. So you're speaking my language. So the first thing that I'm going to say, and this probably will be the first time that you've heard this. Mm-hmm. And this will be things that I will talk about in the nutrition education classes. I am very big on making sure that the way we speak about food is just. I want to make sure that we take shame out of the equation when we talk about food. And so for that reason, the word choices that I use around food, I do not use, I don't use the word healthy. I don't use the word unhealthy. I don't use the word good, and I don't use the word bad. And I'm very intentional about that because it puts food on a hierarchy. So if something is good, let's just say if kale is good, then what is the assumption about all these other foods, right? Fruits, vegetables, collards even. We assume that if this is a superfood, then the other foods that we're choosing are not, right? And so then people have guilt and shame because they're choosing something that they might have access to. And so what I like to talk about when we talk about food is referring to what it does for our body. Okay. And so when I say that, if we're talking about candy versus broccoli, candy gives us energy, right? Normally we talk about candy in a negative light. Like it doesn't have any nutrients and things like that. At the very least, candy gives us energy. But when we talk about broccoli is going to give us, some calcium. It's going to give us vitamin A, some vitamin C, some fiber, some hydration, a little bit of energy. So when we look at that list, it does a lot for our body. All right. And so we want to choose foods that do a lot for our body more frequently.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay. That's how we want to frame it. And this is important because when we talk about these neighborhoods that don't have access to these foods and they're choosing other things, they often feel shame, like it's their fault, right? Like, oh, I'm eating this, so I'm the wrong person, right? I'm the one in the wrong, when it's really the system is failing them. So I want them to see that they are part of a larger system, and you're working with what you have. And when we know better, we do better, right? And so that's where the education piece comes in.
That's right.
Are there better choices that we can make? But I really think that starting to look at the research, these social determinants of health, like stress, the research is showing that stress actually can have a bigger part on our health than what we're choosing to put in our body. Right. And that's like mind blowing when we're starting to pull this stuff back. And what happens when we feel shamed? What happens, you know, and I start to tell people, I was just like, is your mental health more important than your physical health? Mm-hmm. Right. And so if you're always walking around talking about, I have no willpower, I'm terrible at this, I'm terrible at that, when it's really not your fault, that is not producing, it's not producing good physical health or strong mental health either. So we really have to start to have that conversation about how we can do better with what we have, but acknowledging that a lot of the choices that we're making are, you know, we're forced to make these choices within a system.
Right. And you mentioned something that was very important. You mentioned that knowing, you know, knowing is important. Education is definitely important, you know, because what I find, and one of the things that I do go through with all of the patients who come in for assessments, you know, I always do a review of some foods that you may want to stay away from, and I explain why. But what I find is that there's a lot more to it than just, you know, okay, well, kale is good, right? But there's a term out there. There's something called PLU codes, which is very important, how to properly shop for fruits and vegetables. You know, and I try to encourage a lot of us a lot of times that, you know, yes, it's good to have access to, you know, certain, you know, fruits and vegetables. A lot of people, especially in that particular area, I know that they go to, you know, some fruit stands and, you know, things like that. And, you do what you got to do at times. I completely get it. But properly understanding how to shop for fruits and vegetables, I find is very important. Which alleviates a lot of the problems of, okay, well, you know, is it okay for me to go here? Is it okay for me to go there? Okay, I know this supermarket over here has the organic number 9 apples, as opposed to going to this place over here where they may only have 3s and 4s or 6, 7s and 8s. You know, and meaning that the organic number 9, of course, you know, just to share, organic number 9 means organic. That means that fruit or the vegetable has not been sprayed. I'm sorry, that it's organic, and that the fruit or vegetable has not been sprayed, but nor the seed or soil has been genetically modified, right? So 3s or 4s obviously means that the fruit or vegetable has been sprayed with some form of pesticide, right? Or insecticide, which we got to be careful with, because that could lead to issues such as blood disorder issues if it's consumed, and also different forms of cancer. Then you have 6, 7s, and 8s, which means genetically engineered. So that means that it's, you know, some people may, we may call that like, you know, some freaky stuff, right? That means that fruit or vegetable was made in a lab. That's your seedless fruits or vegetables. And, you know, what fruit grows without a seed, right? So we really gotta be mindful when it comes to the education piece, which I totally agree with you on, because once we get that, now we know what to look for. So yes, it's important to have, which is why I commend what you're doing with the 5-week program, because now not only does it gives people an education piece that they now can tie to the health to help them make better decisions, right? That we were discussing. You definitely want to make as many good decisions as you possibly can. But, everything in Whole Foods ain't good, right? So that means when you walk in Whole Foods, you got to know what to look for. That means you got to turn that bag over and you got to look at those ingredients. You got to say, oh, wait a minute, maltodextrin? I don't want that. That canola oil? I know I can't have that. That's going to lead to high blood pressure issues, cholesterol problems, things like that, different oils and processed foods, things like that. So I think that education is very, very, very important. Another thing that I wanted to touch on real fast that you mentioned, yes, there is a marriage and a link between what I would call emotional food eating and, emotions and food, right? Stress, right? I find that folks who crave a lot of white sugar are usually dealing with something. It's like, all right, I'm stressed out and I need something to make me feel better. So I need something to taste good to change my state of mood, right? They craving that sugar, right? And that sugar can be just as addictive as cocaine, right? It's only one molecule away as addictive as cocaine. So that means that once that sugar has been refined, it's now a chemical. And when it hits the tongue, it sends a signal to the brain. Now we're hooked. We're always chasing that taste. It's like, all right, I got to put some sugar in these grits. I got to put the sugar in here. I need more because we're chasing that taste, right? So yes,
that forever debate.
Right. But your sugar is good. You just want to have the unrefined sugars, right? That's that sugar with the color or tint to it. That means that there's more life, more energy, more minerals, more nutrients in that sugar. Now, if it's refined, that means that they take the minerals out. It's been stripped. So that's no good. We can't do nothing with that. Body say, hey, I can't do nothing with this. There's no energy here, right? And yes, that will speed race the adrenal glands, which sit right on top of the kidneys, which puts us in a state of fight or flight, right? That's like when we drink coffee, we're ready to do something, real anxiety runs high. So now that leads to a whole nother conversation when we talk about certain behaviors that occur in our neighborhoods as well. So not to go too far off tangent here, but I just wanted to piggyback on those two things because they were very important and, to what you said. And I just wanted to really highlight those 2 points.
And you made me think of two things. And you asked me, what's one of the things that you could do? Going back to those greens, I'm an urban grower, right? And one of the statements that I always feel in my soul is whoever controls the food supply controls you. And I don't expect everybody to want to be a farmer, but if you can get a pot and some soil and some quality seeds, the first thing that I would recommend is growing your own green leafy vegetables. Whatever green leafy vegetables are your favorite, grow them. Because those are the things that if you're going to buy organic, if you're going to be really specific and spend your hard-earned money on something, those are the things that we really need to be getting in on a regular basis. And they can cost a lot. And greens grow very well in a pot.
Yep.
And you can do that on a patio, in a windowsill if it's big enough. So that is something, that is a way that people can reduce their food budget and improve their health.
And I think, there's a lot to be said for the idea we are trained by nature in this society to want everything instantly, right? So it's automatically going to be our inclination to just walk in a store and get it. And there are certain things like I'm not built for wringing chickens' necks and plucking them. And you know what I mean? I will gladly leave that labor to somebody who is skilled at it and who does it. But the things that we can control and baby steps toward getting shortening that distance between where it comes from and how it gets in your system and gives you all the things that you need is important. So maybe it is something as simple as beginning with growing a few peppers or some greens in a pot on the windowsill and retraining the mentality toward how we interact with this earth and the food.
Yeah.
and bringing that into our bodies. And that's what your program is designed to do, to educate people about it and then to get them up and involved in that movement that is also that next step in their journey. So talk to us now more and lay out for people about your walks, and especially because you've got one coming up this weekend. We're going to rush to get this podcast available so that people will hear about it and then come out and join you this weekend. But let's talk about this series of walks that you're beginning as well.
Sure. So Nourish Neighborhoods, as I mentioned, is a 5-week program. So the initial activity starts this Thursday, tomorrow, September. I don't even know what today. September 5th. Yes. Okay. So the nutrition education classes will be on Thursday evenings at the YMCA in West Philadelphia, and then on Sunday, and each Sunday until the duration of the program, which would be the last Sunday of this month. We will be doing our themed walk based off of that book, 52 Ways to Walk, in Malcolm X Park at 10 a.m. Okay. And I have walk leaders. So people, they'll get you excited and things like that. So I've partnered with We Walk Philadelphia to have walk leaders that are going to just have people be excited and help build community. And once again, those theme walks, you'll get to learn something new. All the registered families get to go home with that book. Because once again, there's 52 ways to walk that are demonstrated in the book, and the class is only 5 weeks. So we can't get through all of them. So they'll know that there's distinct benefits. And then on Tuesday evenings at, I believe at 6, also at Malcolm X Park, we'll be walking. And this one will be more of a standard walk. Once again, anybody is welcome to come and join us in the park. I actually encourage everybody to come and join us in the park. And this is one of those things we'll build community. And one of the things that I thought was particularly important is some of those days when you're just tired and you're just like, oh, I know I should get out. I know I should move my body, but I don't want to. There'll be that person that lives down the street, and they might be the motivator to get you up and get you walking.
Right.
So that was really my intention, is for people to figure out who lives around you and be accountability partners. Yeah. Move together.
That's a wonderful, wonderful thing. Well, we know that it's a short deadline to get to the first one, but this is a 5-week engagement. And we know people have busy lives. They may not make it to every single thing, but we want to encourage them to register so they can get the maximum benefit out of what this is all about. So for people who want to make sure that they are signed up and have access to all the good things you are offering, where do they need to go?
So they could send me a message at this point, because my registration form is closed, but they could certainly email me, and my email address is Stacey, Stacey, at Stacey, Stacey, Woodson, WOODSON.com. So Stacey at StaceyWoodson.com. And just let me know that you're interested in learning more about the Nourish Neighborhoods program.
Wonderful. Well, we know that the people who will be listening on audio can run that back. We'll put it on screen for the people who will be watching the video to make sure that everybody understands how to stay connected. And you mentioned that this whole effort began from a micro grant. Do we need to do a quick shout out to the granting organization just to let people know that these things exist?
Sure. So it is called the CAB grant, which is the Community Advisory Board grant. And it is a division of the city. And I don't want to get it wrong, but I think it's the Chronic Injury Prevention Department. Okay. And so they gave, I believe, 5 people micro grants to do different programming all over the city. And so I was one of those grant recipients.
That is wonderful. Well, kudos to you for having the idea that then got some funding so that you could actually bring it to fruition. With us and Sick With It, we're in that same role, right? We were inspired by tragedy and then reached out to help find resources to make sure that we're letting people know about all the good folks like you here in our city and in the region that are doing this kind of work. helping to get us better. And so we want to thank you for your time today in letting people know about your efforts. We hope that folks who are hearing this podcast will flood you with requests so that we have lots of people in West Philly each Sunday for the next 5 weeks, and at your nutrition classes on Thursdays, getting all this good information that you're providing.
Well, thank you so much for having me and getting this message out.
Absolutely.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, my goodness, that was wonderful.
Yes,
So
yes.
so excited, and we'll also make sure for folks who are tuning in that we get Stacy's information up on our Sick With It website in the digital resource guide. You know, that's our one-stop shop for people to learn more about other holistic health practitioners and nutritionists, all the people who are in this wellness game in Philadelphia who are really making a difference. In our second segment, we'll provide a platform for our co-host and resident holistic health practitioner Andre Capers to respond to timely health topics being discussed in the headlines or matters that are cropping up in the patients he treats in his practice. In order to be better at walking the walk to wellness, we need to address our immediate issues and heed practical advice about how to turn things around. In the words of esteemed scholar James Baldwin, not every problem we face can be fixed, but nothing can be fixed until we face it. Present company included. Our next portion of today's program begins on a sad note because for those of you who know the history of Sick With It and how it came to be, how we put together our first health and wellness symposium in December, you know that it was inspired by tragedy. It was inspired by the loss of our beloved Azell Dixon. Many of you who might be in the creative community have known him and seen him and heard him play with lots of our local and national stars because he was very, very gifted. And we were, Tony Allen and I were together at a birthday party for Deanna Williams when we got news that Azell had been found dead in his home. And so that's what got us to work to even bring Sick With It back to life in this capacity. And over the past weekend, we continue to hear about other Gen Xers like us who are losing their lives far too soon. So I'll speak on Fat Man Scoop because that was the one, you know, that was a name that I was familiar with. I knew about his work with Missy Elliott on tour, on stage. You know, one of the things that we often kind of joke about as people is that, you know, you want to go out doing the thing that you love.
You love, right. Yeah, that was.
And so, you know, that works in real time. That's a different kind of proposition. He was literally on stage, had just basically got the crowd hyped up, like, you know, let's get it in. And then he collapsed on stage in front of an audience, 53 years old, gone.
Too young.
And you mentioned another name to me, Dre, that I haven't even seen the news reports about, Little Troy. So tell us about his passing.
Yeah, Little Troy had a big hit out in 1999. The single was "Wanna Be a Baller." It was a big hip hop record, and during that time, and I know he's recently in the hospital right now. Also, I heard that or oversaw that Scarface from the Ghetto Boys is also dealing with some issues. He's in the hospital right now, and the list just goes on and on and on. And this is why we have to take good care of ourselves right now. Like, we got to know ourselves better than the doctor does at this point.
Right.
Right.
And we have to continue to create outlets where we feel comfortable talking about these things, right? Just today, I was cleaning up some of my files on my computer and came across a piece that I wrote for the AARP Sisters newsletter. And so you know, a good friend of mine was an editor there, and I decided I wanted to pitch this piece that was this very subject about hip hop Gen Xers losing their lives too early. And this was in 2019, following, kind of based in Heavy D, who had already begun his wellness path when he passed,
Wow.
a blood
Yeah.
clot, something that, we don't even think about. And Fife, right?
Yep.
His
Yep.
struggle
Fight
with his
dog.
diabetes and his kidney disease and
Yeah.
his passing. So they decided not to go with it because the newsletter at the time was moving in a different direction with shorter pieces, more lifestyle pieces. They bought the piece but never printed it,
Wow.
right?
Wow.
And so I think now here we are 5 years later,
Hmm.
continuing to have this same conversation. How could they not think that an article about that subject was relevant to these people who were basically my age, just beginning to sign up? Like, I just joined AARP earlier this year.
Wow.
But, this was still reaching my inbox. This was still an audience that are the people who are mates for, who are, in households with
Hmm.
other people in this age bracket. And we know that Black women in particular
Hmm.
are supervising the healthcare decisions in households.
Mm.
So we need to be having this conversation very much on an ongoing basis to make sure we're
Yeah.
getting ourselves right and our households right.
Yeah. And just to kind of piggyback on that, from what I'm seeing, what it all boils down to at the end of the day, honestly, it's food choices. It's food choices and or the things that we're putting in our bodies that we don't realize that's causing a lot of the issues that you just described. Diabetes, high blood pressure, blood clots, right? Cholesterol issues, cancer, liver issues, right? I mean, we're all dealing with a lot of things that we're seeing out here, whether if it's a friend, family member, at the end of the day, what we have to do is we have to make sure that we're consuming things that's going to keep the body balanced, that's going to keep the body healthy, that's going to keep the body strong. We need that energy. The body needs energy, and it needs the right type of energy to be able to function correctly. So when we talk about, just to kind of give you an example, we're seeing a lot of issues right now with people coming in with heart inflammation, a lot of heart inflammation, a lot of high blood pressure issues. And usually that's stemming from two things. Usually it's stemming from consuming a lot of the processed foods, also consuming a lot of the refined oils, which is causing a lot of these issues, and also to the different types of butter. Not that butter's bad, it's just the things that they're putting in the butter that's causing the plaque buildup around the arteries and veins, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like, all right, look, I got blood flow here through the artery, through the artery here. I got blood flow, right? But when that plaque builds up, what happens is that hole gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and less blood can get through. Now the blood has no choice but to go up. That's high blood pressure, right? So what we got to do is we got to consume things that'll help break that plaque buildup up, open that
Right.
hole up so we can get that blood flowing to the heart properly, right?
Yes. Yes.
So something easy that we could do. I mean, there's other things, but if you're a person that's just starting out, one of the things that I'll always recommend would be something like a celery juice. Celery, right? Sometimes the
Crunchy
shape,
water.
yeah,
I saw
right, really,
I saw somebody describe celery online the other day as chewing water with hair in it.
all right, yeah, it could be looked at that way, right?
No,
It could
I
be,
just thought it was funny. That's not me discouraging anybody from what you're about to say. I just think
right.
that we develop these pictures or these narratives in our
Hmm.
head that keeps us from doing the right thing.
Right.
So sometimes we just have to acknowledge that stuff and laugh at it because okay, we call it that, let it be that. Now let's move
Right.
beyond that to why it's good for you.
Right. So check this out. So let's play a little game. So what is what part of the body would celery look like or be shaped like?
That's a good question.
Take a guess.
Our throat?
No, looks like a what?
Oh, okay. Forearm. I got you. Okay.
No, bone.
Oh, a bone. Okay. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Celery's great for the bones, helps strengthen the bones.
Okay.
And when you break that celery open, that hair or stringy stuff that you see looks like what? Arteries and veins. So sometimes the fruit or the vegetable, depending on the shape, right, will also tell you what part of the body it's good for.
Love it.
Right?
Yes.
Absolutely. So sometimes, that's a free one there, right? Because there's something easy that everybody can do. If you're a person that's dealing with, high blood pressure or high cholesterol issues, or you need to break up those clots or whatever the case may be, then yeah, you definitely want to get you some celery juice. Maybe get like a stalk, break it up, put it in your blender, add some water, spring water bottled at the source. Right. We'll get into that some other time. Right. But yeah, you definitely want to make sure you add the water, a stalk of celery, just break it up, blend it up, drink it.
Now I'm gonna ask the question that other people might not want to because they will fear being judged.
I'm sorry. One more thing I want to add real fast. I'm sorry. How could I forget this? Celery juice is also good for cleansing the gut and the kidneys. I can't tell you how many women come in the office and I say, okay, what's going on? What would you like to accomplish? And the first thing they tell me is, I want to get my stomach together. I want to get this together. I want to lose weight. I want to get my blood pressure down. Okay. Celery juice is very good for those things.
Right. Now, celery doesn't have an unpleasant taste to me, but the idea of celery juice is interesting because celery is mostly like water, but it has it's a more savory, I guess you could say, kind of flavor to it.
Green.
Would it be bad if you say added to your celery juice, if you added a little bit of apple?
All right. So,
or anything else, that just blends with the flavor to make you want to take it more.
Yes, there are certain things that you can do. If you want to take a pinch of, let's say, Himalayan salt.
Oh,
just a pinch.
Okay.
Just a pinch. Yours, not mine, but just a pinch, right?
Right.
If you put that in the celery juice, then that'll help, right? Also, too, it'll give electrolytes to the drink as well. It'll give more electrolytes.
Okay.
Right? Also, too, if you want to cut a slice, just a slice of lemon, that will also help as far as alkalizing the drink as well. I would not recommend adding. So here's my take. As far as the fruits and vegetables are concerned, never mix the two together.
Okay.
I see that a lot, especially here in the city of Philadelphia, at a lot of juice trucks, smoothie trucks, especially. They, it tastes good, but at the end of the day, you got to understand, fruits burn at a much more faster speed as opposed to vegetables. So you want fruits in the morning because that's quick energy, right? That's going to get you up. That's going to get you moving. You need that first thing. But you want vegetables in the afternoons and evenings because they help stabilize. Now, what happens is when you mix the two together and you consume it, the body like, all right, look, I don't know if I want to chill, if I want to run. What you want to do?
Right.
All right. You be thinking about something from 20 years ago, all mad, and then 5 minutes later, you like, all right, what happened? Why was I thinking about that? Yeah, you out of balance. You got to chill.
Well, but that, as Americans, we do a lot of stuff wrong. We do a lot of stuff backwards, right? And this is something that, because I'm a foodie, you can tell to look at me, but just in general, like I like to understand the origins of foods and dishes and to experiment with cuisines and the whole thing. But Philly, we are a sandwich city. And so what you're saying about fruits and vegetables is also about meat and bread.
Meat and bread.
They don't go together. Like
Don't
our
go
body
together.
processes them differently, but sandwiches are something that we get pushed on us from being
Hmm.
little kids, like as
Yeah,
something that is nutritious or something that we can eat. And you're, what you're saying is it confuses the body. Like that's another one of the things. We
throws us
also
off.
have a tendency to eat salads before
Hmm.
an entree, when salads after the entree help move it through the system, if what I've been told is correct.
Well, yeah, salad is definitely great for moving the digestive system. Matter of fact, anything green is always going to be good for moving the digestive system.
Right.
Absolutely. Onions, right? I always say
Mhm.
red onions are better, but white onions are good too, right?
Mhm.
So what happens is when the body consumes the energy that it needs, it functions correctly. It starts to push everything out of the body that's not supposed to be there. That's why the first thing that we do when we consume a smoothie or something healthy, we gotta go to the bathroom right
Yeah,
away.
right.
It's like, oh my God, this is going through me. Well, that good's going through you is a good thing. It's cleaning you out. You see, we operate like a battery, right?
Mhm.
And you ever see a battery and on it
Mhm.
it says alkaline on the battery,
Yes.
right? But what happens when that battery runs out of energy? What forms at the top of the battery?
Corrosion.
Acid,
Yeah.
right? So we got alkaline acid. That's all this is at the end of the day. When your body's in the state of acid, that means that you're now exposed to all different forms of chronic disease. So
Mhm.
cancer lives there, your cold lives there, your bad attitude lives over there on the acidic side. You got a bad attitude, you full of acid. That's your problem, right? So what you got to do is you got to start spinning in the right direction. You got to start getting in, to do that. You need alkalinity to accomplish
Mhm.
that, right? You need foods that come from the ground, right?
Mhm.
See, it's a reason why we suppose that's our charge. Alkaline, we need that. So
Yeah.
when we consume it, now the body says, "Oh, wait a minute, it's a party time. All right, let's start getting this stuff out of here. Let's get the toxins out. Let's get out what you ate 3 days ago." All right, just imagine that. Just imagine
Mhm.
that. A lot of the foods that, because I've been guilty of it. I mean, I wasn't a saint eating all healthy like this my whole life. I wasn't. This was something that I picked up probably about 10 years
Mhm.
ago. But I say that to say that it's a journey. We all can start. And one of the best ways of starting that journey is getting informed about, what to do and what's best for the body. That's the
Yeah.
best thing that you can
And that's why we are so pleased to have you here as our resident expert, to give us some tough love sometimes, but to give us the information that begins to get us moving in the right direction so that we're taking better care of ourselves, right?
do.
With Sick With It, y'all, we operate under the hashtag Let's Get Better Together.
Right, right,
So we don't want you to feel like you're on an island out there somewhere trying to do the best thing for yourselves and that there's no community around you encouraging you to do better. We don't always do better 100% of the time, but having the knowledge and
mhm,
taking steps toward being better is what we all can do. We
right.
Each and every one of us can do that. And so this podcast is one vehicle to help you get there. Our website is another. You can connect with practitioners that have been vetted by Mr. Capers, and we know that they are out here doing the good work in our community. We want you to find out where they're going to be. Join them on some of the events that they are sponsoring and activities that they're doing that'll get you on the right path. And we're going to be inviting more people here on this podcast to talk to you about this work and how we are trying to make our community better, because we are tired of losing our peers. We
Yeah,
are tired of seeing our friends and our loved ones walking around here with all kinds of ailments that come from preventable things. So if we can all begin this journey and walk this journey together, then we'll all be better for it. And that's what this is all about.
yeah. I'm so glad that we're doing this.
And
I know that
I know,
just a
listen,
little side note.
your smile says everything.
I'm so glad. I'll be honest. I'm just gonna say it. A lot of folks have been getting on me for the past few years about, Dre, when you gonna get online? When you gonna do a podcast? When you gonna do something? You gotta. What are you doing? Yeah, you gotta do it. And now is definitely a good time. I'm starting to see too many of my friends and associates either become extremely ill or pass away from something that could have been prevented. And they're passing away young. That's the whole
Yeah.
thing. So it's like, all right, look, man, let's get the heart together. There's certain things that we could do for the heart. Okay, you got a little cancer situation going on or something. That, all right, cool. Then let's talk about naturally cleaning your blood. There's certain things you could do there too. But one of the main things that I'm also seeing is that a lot of women have been coming in with the lumps underneath the armpits. And that usually comes from not moving what's called the lymphatic system, which is the sewer system for the body, right? And the only time that the lymphatic system moves is when you move, right? So that means that, pertaining to your point that you made earlier about dancing and walking and things like that, all of that stuff is healthy. It's very healthy. Every time you sweat, that is a great thing. You don't want to put things on your body that's going to keep the sweat in.
Right.
Because when it keeps the sweat in, now those toxins are remaining in the body, and now it gets into the bloodstream, and here we go. We got the little cancer problem going on.
Yeah.
So what we got to do is we got to cleanse that blood, but we got to keep that lymphatic system moving, right? So go for a walk. I don't know, turn that James Brown on when nobody ain't in the house. Turn the radio up, get it pumping, and do what you got to do for 30 minutes. Get it off, right? Yes. But the idea is you just want to move and sweat. One of the things that I try to do first thing in the morning, I like to listen to my headphones at times, or I may be taking a call or what have you. And I just do that, listen to music or take my business calls, and I go for walks. But when I'm walking for 2-3 hours at a time. I'm walking. That's just me. I'm not saying everybody do that, but that's just me. I walk till my legs hurt, right? People like, Dre, how you stay so skinny, man? I'm skinny. They're like, how you stay so skinny? I walk. I walk and I sweat, and I walk and I sweat, and it feels great. Like my body feels great. I don't feel like a man that's turning 43 next week. I feel really good. I don't have a gray hair on my body, and a lot of that is due to, not that anything's wrong with that, right?
Look, no offense taken.
Not that there's anything wrong with that, right? but there are some things that that I've experienced throughout my own journey where, because of the proper diet, because of the tremendous amount of walking, it's almost like I'm going backwards in the time machine. I'm like, wow, this anti-aging thing is real. Right? So yeah, the fruits, the vegetables, the herbs, which we're definitely going to talk about at some point in time. We're going to get into that real good.
Yeah.
And because it's not just about taking the herb, it's knowing how to apply it to make it work. And I think that's one of the benefits that people will get from, viewing our podcast and, with some of the things that we're sharing. So
absolutely.
Not to be long-winded, I'm so excited about this. I really am.
Yes, I'm excited too, because, this is my personal journey, but it's also so many other people in our community that are trying to do our level best to be here for as long as the Creator sees fit, and to do so at a high quality of life. Nobody wants to be limping to that last breath. Correct. No, nobody wants that. Nobody envisions that for their life. And so if we can re-energize people around that idea of squeeze as much goodness out of this life as you possibly can, regardless of income, regardless of those other markers of success. So, the important thing for people to keep in mind is that this is the first episode in what we see as a journey that will bring people great information and make you feel like you are not alone in this, that you are a part of a larger community of folks who are moving one day, one step at a time toward being their best selves. And we're going to keep bringing you guests that will give you information that'll help you get there. The Sick-Witted Podcast is a Soul Sanctuary media production. For more information on our health and wellness initiative, to access the wellness providers in our digital resource guide, or to make a donation, visit us at sickwitted.net. That's sick WIT.net. Thanks for listening. Subscribe, share, and we'll see you next time.
Oh, that's funky. That's funky. Now everybody throw it up. And now they screaming, turn it up. So I